Evidence suggests that AI tools used in recruitment favour male names at almost 5 times more often than female names, and AI models built to predict liver disease are twice as likely to miss the disease in women. So does my right honourable friend agree that unless we have women shaping this technology, it will continue not to deliver for women? And can she outline the government plans to address those biases whilst encouraging more women in Paisley and Renfrewshire South to join the sector?
Yeah, she's absolutely right. The bias in technology highlights why we need more women building it. We want more women in tech and more tech that works for women. That's exactly why we launched the Women in Tech Task Force. We're going to publish the results of its call for evidence next week. We've had a fantastic response, but we're not waiting to take action. We're launching a new Tech First Girls programme for 12 and 13-year-olds, a programme to help advance women's careers by giving them minimum 6-month placements, and we're putting our own house in order by making sure government departments like the MOJ and Home Office actually help software developers return to work after 18 months.
James Shannon.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Minister very much for her answer to the question of the Honourable Lady put forward. Already, Minister, some companies are setting aside a number of places and a quota of ladies for the jobs that they hope to introduce women to. Does the Honourable Lady and the Minister in particular think it's time to set a quota for companies? We recognise some of the good work that companies do, but maybe a quota for places for ladies might just ensure that many companies might be persuaded to go the extra mile.
I actually think the most effective way to get change is to show the results, which is the women who produce the brilliant science and the brilliant technology that helps get those innovations and bring in the cash. You know, women founders of tech companies only get 2p in every pound in VC funding, yet on average they present 35% higher returns. If you want better science and tech and a better economy, you better get more women on board.
We come to Topicals. Helen Morgan.
Mr. Speaker.
If I may briefly, Mr. Speaker, I am very proud that today I am launching our Charter for Women in Research, setting out minimum standards for maternity pay and leave for women doing PhDs in this country, alongside leave for their partners, adoption leave, leave for baby loss and pregnancy-related sickness too. More than 64 organisations have already signed up. This is crucial for women and for the quality of science and tech and our country, because Britain only succeeds when we make the most of all our talents.
Helen Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In the Digital Communities APPG, which I chair, we often hear from mobile network operators that one of the reasons they don't serve rural areas properly is that they can't get planning permission. But in Shropshire, the council have given planning permission to 3 specific sites to a passive infrastructure provider, and they still can't get the mobile network operators to put their equipment on their masts. So what can the Secretary of State do to ensure that mobile network operators give my constituents the coverage that they are paying for?
Secretary of State.
I know she's really concerned about making sure they've got the proper network coverage. We do encourage mobile network operators to use existing infrastructure where they can, but I'm more than happy to arrange a meeting with my right honourable friend to get the progress the people of North Shropshire need and deserve.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Broadcasting, Entertainment and Arts Union APPG heard deeply concerning evidence from writers, from journalists, musicians and performers that their work is being scraped, ripped off, stolen by sophisticated AI models for training purposes. So when will the Secretary of State introduce laws to protect the creative industries, and will she meet with the APPG and unions to discuss this further?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, can I thank my honourable friend for raising this critical question for Britain's creative sector. Just yesterday on British IP Day, I met with the Alliance for IP, including both artists, authors, publishers, journalists, media organisations, to talk about how our work on digital replicas and transparency will be critical to supporting the creative sector. I'd be delighted to meet with her and the APPG.
Secretary of State Julian Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Professor Brian Cox is among the eminent scientists warning about the impact of government cuts to research on advanced physics and astronomy, a move he calls inexplicable. Meanwhile, the government is spending millions on projects examining climate coloniality, decolonialising justice, and transforming LGBTIQ+ asylum policy. Are these the Secretary of State's research priorities too? And if not, has she made crystal clear to UKRI?
Secretary of State.
I'm sorry to put the Right Honourable Lady straight, but we're not cutting money for that. We're actually putting the biggest ever funding for research and development ever in this country, something I am especially proud of. And we are protecting both curiosity-led research and also making sure we focus on the key priorities of this country, because we know there's no route to stronger growth or better answers and innovations without science and technology at its...
Julia Lopez.
I think the Secretary of State just said that the eminent professors are wrong. But aside from research spend, one of the core reasons for those budgetary pressures in physics is the ruinous cost of energy under Labour. It's ideology in research spend, it's ideology in energy policy. In March, the Secretary of State said we need to sort out the problems facing physics funding as soon as possible. It's now July. Has she lobbied the Energy Secretary to stop him driving up the core costs of our critical scientific research institutions?
May I say gently to the Right Honourable Lady that we are dealing with the mess that we inherited from members opposite, by making sure that this country can rely on clean, renewable, homegrown energy right here in Britain. It's why we are driving the technological revolution in AI, in our AI growth zones in Wales, through 3 small modular nuclear reactors. It's why this country has had more VC funding in our AI startups just this year than the whole of the rest of Europe. We are driving forward change to make sure this country can succeed.
Jack Abbott.
Mr. Speaker, I recently visited Northgate High School in Ipswich with the Children's Commissioner, and as ever the pupils were thoughtful and articulate about what they needed for the future. But the subject of digital and AI came up a lot, and they said they need greater access to public services, but also skilling up for future employment as well. So can the Minister outline what the government are doing to make sure they can access these public services, as well as the important digital and AI skills they do desperately need?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is boosting digital and AI skills by embedding media literacy across all key stages, including introducing an AI-inclusive computing GCSE and a £20 million Early Careers Jobs Alliance. We will ensure digital inclusion as fundamental as the government works to develop digital access to public services through digital ID, and these measures will support children and all people to access public services when they need them, personalised, joined up and less faff.
Good luck, England. Can I welcome the government's commitment to introducing a social media ban for the under-16s, followed by repeated calls from our side of this House? Can the Minister outline what steps the government will take to ensure that the enforcement of such a ban is robust enough to prevent children from bypassing it through the use of mechanisms such as VPNs, which themselves expose young people to additional risks?
The honourable gentleman makes an extremely important point, which is we know children will try and succeed in getting round the ban. Our measures are as much about resetting the cultural and social norms for future generations, but we will have more highly effective age verification measures to make this work, and we are looking at the issue in particular of VPNs, and I'll come back to the House with more on this very soon.
Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, may I extend a warm welcome to the Speaker of the House of Representatives of Trinidad and Tobago and his delegation, who are in the gallery today. We now come to questions to the Prime Minister. Dr. Al Pinkerton.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House, are with the people of Venezuela. The scenes of destruction are simply harrowing. Mr. Speaker, we've committed humanitarian funding, deployed expert search and rescue teams, and I can announce today that we will match public donations up to £2 million on aid. Mr Speaker, in an increasingly dangerous and volatile world, our Defence Investment Plan commits more to investment on our armed forces. It delivers the modern kit and capabilities our personnel need to keep us safe, meaning we buy British to create jobs here at home and strengthen our international leadership. Mr Speaker, Sunday marks the 78th birthday of the NHS, and I'm pleased that under this government waiting lists are down, A&E waits are shorter, and we have the shortest cancer diagnosis times on record. I also welcome the agreement reached with the resident doctors to end the strikes, so our full focus can be delivering further improvements for patients. Mr Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Dr Elpington.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I associate myself with both the condolences and also birthday good wishes to the NHS? Everyone in my constituency of Surrey Heath wants a new Frimley Park hospital, but the chosen site, the last remaining fragment of the ancient Frimley Common, is wholly inappropriate. It's inaccessible, behind multiple schools, and environmentally devastating. But worse, over recent weeks, I've received deeply troubling evidence that the preferred relocation site was known and being openly discussed by local political figures in 2023 before the official site selection process had even begun. The entirely reasonable conclusion, Mr Speaker, is that this project has been compromised from the outset and the site predetermined. I think the Prime Minister would agree that this is no way to begin a multi-billion-pound public procurement process. So would the Prime Minister please step in? Would the Prime Minister please step in, commission an urgent independent review?
I think the Prime Minister's got the question.
Well, Mr Speaker, his NHS Trust has identified their preferred site for the new Frimley Park Hospital, and detailed technical work can now start. And let's be frank about this hospital. The Tories promised 40 new hospitals with no funding and no delivery plan, and we've had to fix that. His hospital, thanks to Labour investment, is at the front of the queue. It will be one of the first in the country to be rebuilt. But his approach, Mr Speaker, has been, on the one hand, to demand a new hospital and then oppose actually building it. He's urged his constituents to oppose it because, quote, this is his quote, "If the hospital goes ahead, there will be no golf course." So, Labour building new hospitals, he's standing up for golf courses. I can't think of anything more Lib Dem.
Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. A good, safe and secure home is the foundation of everything, and access to a council home at social rent continues to be the biggest issue that my Luton South and South Bedfordshire constituents get in touch with me about. But under this Labour government, in 24-25, councils delivered the highest annual number of social and affordable homes since 1991-92. So does the Prime Minister agree with me that we must build on this achievement and accelerate progress on council house building to ensure we deliver the biggest council housing programme since the post-war era?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm proud that this government is delivering the biggest boost to social and affordable housing in a generation. Backed by £39 billion, it means we're unleashing the biggest surge in council house building in over 30 years, and that includes 1,000 new sociable and affordable homes in Luton and Bedfordshire. And our social housing bill will reform Right to Buy to deliver even more social houses. A Labour government delivering the homes that we need.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Bin.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And can I associate myself and this side of the House with the Prime Minister's comments about Venezuela and also about the Lib Dems? Mr Speaker. But seriously, Mr Speaker, the Chief of Defence Staff made it known that the armed forces needed a minimum of £28 billion more to defend the country. Can the Prime Minister tell us why he thinks half that amount is enough?
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm very proud that this Labour government has delivered 2 major funding increases in just 2 years in government. The first, which was funded by overseas aid, took us to £270 billion over the spending review period. Mr Speaker, that is a record The Defence Investment Plan gives us capability we need for the future. That sets a new record, Mr Speaker, of £300 billion over the next 4 years. That will be invested in drones and autonomous weapons, the largest ever investment, strengthening the UK's nuclear capability, upgrading our naval bases in the most significant way for 45 years, and confirming our commitment to the next generation of fighter jets. That is what is needed to keep our country safe.
Mr Speaker, he didn't say that it was enough, and that was a very long list of things that he's not yet paying for. It is not right and it is not fair, certainly not to our troops who put their lives on the line for all of us every single day. 3 weeks ago, Mr Speaker, 3 weeks ago, the Defence Secretary resigned, saying, "I am being forced to make decisions that would increase the risk to personnel on operations and could make the country less safe." Since that letter, the Prime Minister has only increased spending by 0.01%. We can count, the generals can count, the Kremlin can count. His plan doesn't add up. How can the Prime Minister possibly stand there and say that this is enough?
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, this is the most significant upgrade in defence spending since the 1980s. The Chief of Defence Staff has been clear that the plan accelerates the transformation we need for our armed forces. The First Sea Lord, it funds the capability we need to fight and win. The Chief Air Staff strengthens our contribution to NATO, and she must have missed that yesterday the Secretary-General of NATO welcomed the plan. All people who know what's in the plan and welcome it. Contrast that, Mr Speaker, with their record in government, because they hollowed out the armed forces. Their record is cutting defence spending. My record is raising it to £300 billion and rising. Their record is cutting frigates by a quarter, cutting mine hunters by a half, and leaving 47 of 49 defence programmes delayed or over budget. My record is the biggest boost to defence investment since the 1980s. Their record is missing army recruitment targets every year for 14 years. We've given our armed force the biggest pay rise for 20 years and increased defence funding by £15 billion a year. That's a record I'm proud to stand on.
Mr Speaker, the Chief of Defence Staff is an honourable man, and what he and the NATO Secretary-General have done is welcome the fact that a plan has been published. Just that it's been published. They've been waiting for over a year. Strategic Defence Review was last year. He is an honourable man, Mr Speaker, who is having to make do with very little. The threat level has dramatically changed in the 2 years that the Prime Minister has been in office. Poland, since the Prime Minister took office, Poland has increased their funding to 4.8%. Germany has increased theirs to 3.7%. This year, Russia will spend 10% of GDP on defence. Meanwhile, Britain is spending it all on welfare. Even the limited plan that he has announced has completely unravelled because he hasn't found the money to pay for it. It is £5 billion short. We all know that he is leaving this mess to his successor. So can he confirm that the member for Makerfield has agreed to fund the shortfall?
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, what they did was to cut defence spending. When they came into power, defence spending was 2.5%. What did they do? They cut it to 2.3%, a cut. And on welfare, what did they do? They put it up by £88 billion. So we'll take no lectures from them about either welfare or defence. This is £15 billion of new investment for defence, delivered outside of a budget, outside of a spending review. Mr Speaker, that's about £1 billion a year over 4 years. Because of the decisions at the last budget, we've got headroom of £22 billion. That is precisely so we can take decisions like this. We delivered it outside a budget, outside a spending review. Just like we did with the special educational needs, outside a budget, outside a spending review. Just like the previous government did, Mr Speaker, when they announced their 5-year NHS plan in 2018, outside a budget, outside a spending review. And what did they say when they were challenged about it, Mr Speaker? I'll quote. We will be able to explain exactly where every penny is coming from, but we will do that in the budget. That was the former Health Secretary, then the Chancellor. When they published their Integrated Defence Review in 2020, what did they do? They set out the funding at the next spending review. So let's drop the faux outrage, focus on what matters, the biggest sustained increase for 40 years, the biggest increase for 45 years, providing what is needed to keep the country safe.
Mr. Speaker, he says that he's delivering this outside the budget. That's right, it should have been in the last budget. The Strategic Defence Review was published last year. It should have been in the last budget, not the next budget. The intelligence assessment that he himself has said we have says there could be an attack on NATO by 2030. But this plan doesn't deliver until after that. £5 billion is missing from his plan. It also relies on £11 billion of unidentified savings. The plan has unravelled. It is a total dereliction of duty, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. The Times newspaper said today the Prime Minister's legacy... well, why don't we wait and see what they said? That the Prime Minister's legacy is betrayal, failure and vulnerability, and that's one of the nicer headlines. So I will ask again, because he didn't answer the question, Mr. Speaker, did the member for Makerfield know that he was going to have to find £5 billion for the Prime Minister's plan?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when I became Prime Minister 2 years ago, this country spent £54 billion a year on defence. Because of the decisions we've taken, that will rise to £80 billion a year by 2029. That is a real terms increase of 27%, transforming our armed forces. And we're not going to take any lectures from the party opposite. They cut defence spending. They hollowed out the armed forces. That's what their Defence Secretary admitted that's what they did. They don't like it. They won't defend their record, Mr. Speaker, because they can't. They won't apologise for it, because they have to admit what we all know, it's a total failure. They just try to pretend the 14 years they were in power never really happened. We're in power, we've record investment in defence and security. I'm proud of this Labour government, and any Labour Prime Minister would stand behind this plan.
It doesn't sound like he's told the member for Makerfield to find £5 billion. He says any Labour Prime Minister would stand behind this plan. Let me tell him what Lord Richard Dannett, the former head of the Army, said yesterday. He said the Prime Minister had chosen the cheap option and called the plan woefully inadequate. Let me tell him what General Sir Richard Barrons, one of the authors of his own Strategic Defence Review, said yesterday. We are simply not going to be ready to defend this country properly. That's what they're saying. The reason that he is in this mess is because he was too weak to cut welfare when he had the chance. There are only three ways, Mr. Speaker, to find the missing £5 billion. Increase borrowing, increase taxes, or cut welfare. Which one will he recommend to the member for Makerfield?
Mr. Speaker, we're talking about £1 billion a year over 4 years. The decisions at the last budget gave us more than £22 billion in headroom, so we can take the decisions that come. They don't understand this because they trashed the old. We built a headroom of £22 billion. The very reason for the headroom is to have the credibility to take decisions outside the budget and outside the spending review. They don't understand it because they lost control of the public finances. In addition to more on defence and security, we've taken control of the public finances. That's why you have headroom to take credible decisions like this. £1 billion a year over 4 years, headroom of £22 billion because of the decisions we took at the last budget, which allow us to take these decisions.
Mr. Speaker, we understand it perfectly, and that's why, yes we do, that's why he is leaving and so is his Chancellor. They're laughing and pretending, but if he was doing such a fabulous job, why did he resign? Mr. Speaker, defence of the realm is the first duty of government. Yes, it is the first duty of government. I don't need to read again what General Sir Richard Barrons or Lord Richard Dannett said. Maybe they didn't hear it the first time. They can re-watch the clips. But defence of the realm, Mr. Speaker, is the first duty of government. Britain is facing a moment of danger unlike anything in our lifetimes, unlike anything that we saw even in government. We need a plan to fund our armed forces that meets this moment. They are the government for now, not for 10 years ago. And the fact is, Labour's plan is too weak, it is too little, and it is too late. If his successor doesn't want to be complicit in this failure, he should come out and condemn this plan. The money must be found, Mr. Speaker, and that money should come from cutting welfare, something these Labour MPs will not do. And if the Labour Party cannot defend our country, Mr. Speaker, what is the point of them?
It's just all talk. What did they actually do? They cut defence 2.5%. down to 2.3% in their 14 long years. And what have you done on welfare? They put the bill up by £88 billion. So no lectures from them. They failed in the first duty of government. And they won't defend their record, will they? They won't stand here and defend it because they know never do they stand here and defend their record because they can't. 14 years of failure. They don't get up and apologise, which is what they should do, because they would admit what we all know how much they failed. So they just sit there pretending it didn't happen. Well, it did happen. You hollowed out the armed forces. We're correcting you. And I tell you what else, when we came into power, public services were on their knees. Today, we've seen the fastest fall in NHS waiting lists for 17 years. When I became Prime Minister, we inherited a broken economy. Today, we're outperforming the other G7 economies. When I became Prime Minister, our international alliances have been shredded. Now other countries are looking to us to lead on defence and security. Foundations of a stronger and fairer country. Britain in a better state than we found it. That's the difference a Labour government makes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Two of my constituents, Cody and Liam Townend, and another mum from Leeds, Zoe Ward, all lost babies in different tragic circumstances. But they all went to the same funeral director who did not treat their babies' bodies with the dignity, care or respect that they deserved. I will not repeat the shocking details here. The BBC, for their part, published what they could last year. But more shockingly still, the police found nothing actionable in either case because there is no regulation of the funeral industry, and the individual in question is still operating in Leeds today. Given that the Department of Health and Social Care are due to make a decision about changing the law in this area, possibly before he leaves office, will the Prime Minister speak with ministers and officials in that department to ensure that when they consider the question of whether to regulate the funeral industry, their answer is yes?
Can I thank him for raising this case and thank him? He's been a committed campaigner on this. I have seen the details of the particular case. He's right not to repeat them in this chamber. They are horrifying. The lack of dignity and compassion is unacceptable, and I simply can't imagine the pain that Cody, Liam and Zoe experienced and are still experiencing. The status quo here is not working for families. And people deserve to know that their loved ones are treated with dignity and compassion. We are going to consider this closely, and I thank him for raising it. I do want stronger standards and oversight. I think that's absolutely needed, particularly in light of appalling cases like this.
Sir Ed David, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I not associate myself with the Prime Minister's comments about my party? But can I associate myself with all his remarks about the earthquake and humanitarian catastrophe in Venezuela? And can I commend the Scottish team and the Scottish fans on the joy they brought to the World Cup? They did the whole of Scotland proud. And can I wish England well against DR Congo later today? But with Rhys James and Gerald Quansah in doubt, I know the Prime Minister isn't the only one struggling for a solid defence plan. Mr. Speaker, the wars in Ukraine and Iran show us how seriously we must take the threat of missiles and drones hitting our country. Our national security requires the best possible missile defence system, including Royal Navy destroyers. But the funding in his plan for this falls dangerously short. Yet the Prime Minister has rejected our proposals for defence bonds, which were used in the past to rearm our country. So can the Prime Minister tell us why has he chosen to leave our country so vulnerable to missile attack?
Prime Minister.
Can I first join him on his comments about the Scotland team, the Scotland fans, and wish England well? I'm not sure about his gag. He was getting a bit better the other week, but he's gone back down. I'm afraid that one is a red card. But, Mr. Speaker, our defence investment plan gives our country what we need to fight now and into the future, the capability that's been assessed through the strategic review. Bonds, which we looked at very closely, are simply borrowing by another name, and we are already borrowing in a way which requires us to spend £1 in every 10 on servicing the interest on that. And I would gently point out, before he carries on with any criticism of our plan, that he sat in a cabinet that cut defence spending by 22%.
The Prime Minister knows that our defence bonds are within his own fiscal rules, that he's had advice from his own team that he should adopt them, and I hope the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield will listen. But, Mr. Speaker, I have another concern that I think the Prime Minister will share. The rising tide of racist violence and hate that we're seeing in our country, and the way it is being incited and normalised, including, I'm afraid, by some members of this House. I was talking to a British friend of Indian ancestry who told me how reform activists came to her door and said that if they get into power, she and her family will have their passports seized and their citizenship revoked. Does the Prime Minister agree that racism has no place in our country? And will he join me in condemning anyone who is stoking it?
Can I thank him for raising this? It is really important because our politics is becoming more diverse and racism and intolerance is permeating everywhere. And we have to deal with it. Because it's tearing our societies apart. It is keeping good people away from politics because they don't want to be involved in it. And it should be called out by every single person who's a politician at any level in this country. Mr. Speaker, I say this looking at the plaque to Joe Cox, and of course we've got David Amos behind me too. We had a Joe Cox 10-year reminder that it was 10 years ago, just a week or so ago, that we lost Joe. And I had a reception in Downing Street with her parents and other close friends and relatives of hers. We read out the words of Joe again. The very sad thing is, I was not able to say that in the 10 years since Joe's death, things have got better, because sadly, they've got worse. That's on us to fix, all of us to fix, every single member of this House, whatever their party in. And anybody who flames it should be absolutely ashamed of themselves.
Mr. Speaker, can I associate myself with the comments of the Prime Minister about the legacy of Joe Cox? I know all of us in this place have been following the contest for number 10 quite closely in recent weeks, but amid the North versus South debate, I think it's about time we had someone from the Midlands who was ready to step into this important position for our country. So I'm delighted to say we have two fantastic Black Country lads, Jude Bellingham from Stourbridge and Morgan Rogers from Halesowen, who have both been doing us proud in the contested England number 10 role against our game for Congo this evening. So does the Prime Minister agree with me that we should congratulate England on their progress out of the group stage so far? And does he also agree with me that we need to do more to support
Prime Minister?
Well, I thought the next few weeks were about to get quite interesting, Mr. Speaker, but can I... Look, we do all wish England the best of luck this evening, and every time those players step on the pitch, they represent the talent, ambition and diversity of this country. We're proud to be supporting the next generation, investing £400 million into grassroots facilities and over £1 billion in school sports. And if Thomas Tuchel needs any advice on penalties, he should ask David Seaman, who slotted one past him just a few weeks ago.
Dave Dougal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. am gravely concerned. I am gravely concerned that time after time, this Prime Minister, in response to the abject and honest criticism of his defence investment plan, he cites recent trends in defence spending when he should be calibrating it against the chronic and very real threat that the people on these islands face. In his limited time left in number 10, will he get a grip of his paper-thin plan?
Prime Minister.
This is the party that thinks we should give up the nuclear deterrent. And he stands there to talk about defence. So we need no more advice and sanctimonious nonsense from the NSP. Before he or any of them give any more advice to me or this House, let's have some home truths. Their chief executive has just been jailed for 5 years for embezzlement. They're all pretending they didn't know anything about it. They couldn't even see the motorhome parked in the driveway, apparently. And now they're blocking inquiry into the Scottish Parliament. Before they offer any more advice, they should look in the mirror.
There's another question, Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In this increasingly dangerous world, the space domain is critical. So I welcome the £3.2 billion set out for space in the Defence Investment Plan. The plan refers to Skynet 6A, the first military satellite to be designed, manufactured and tested completely in the UK, beginning at Airbus in my constituency of Stevenage and supporting 3,000 jobs across the country. So, does the Prime Minister agree that we must develop both the UK's sovereign capability in space and the British jobs that already power it?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him? And our commitment to space in the Defence Investment Plan reflects how we're preparing our armed forces for the conflicts of the future. And when I see apprentices working in our defence industries, I see this investment creating the more opportunities, including those in many of our constituencies, including his. It underlines exactly what our investment delivers, Mr. Speaker. That's 60,000 new jobs, investing in British skills, promoting our brilliant industries abroad and driving growth in the UK.
Taylor.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday with colleagues I wrote to the Health Minister following the news that women's health and maternity services may be relocated away from St Helier Hospital due to building safety concerns. Yesterday we heard Baroness Amos's review state that poorly maintained buildings affect how safe people feel, how effectively staff can work, and whether care can be delivered in a way that is private, respectful and reliable. It has been reported today that DHSC's capital budget will be cut by more than £500 million over this Parliament to fund the DIP, which puts the new hospital programme timeline in doubt. So, will the Prime Minister arrange for the Health Secretary to visit St Helier Hospital with me to see its condition and hopefully agree to bring forward the build of the new Sutton Setch, build it today, not in 2034, to ensure safe and modern healthcare and maternity facilities for my constituents?
Prime Minister.
Well, in relation to his hospital, he knows that those decisions are taken at a local level based on expert advice. We are committed to prioritising women's health as we reform the NHS, including through our women's health strategy. In his area alone, we're investing £57 million to transform care. That's money that we provided at the budget. He actually voted against it, along with the rest of the Lib Dems of the budget. So they can't, on the one hand, complain about the lack of investment. Then we put the money forward, they vote against it. That, again, is very Lib Dem.
Michelle Welsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Donna Ockenden review and the Baroness Amos review has exposed some very uncomfortable truths. That justice is not brought about by a system, a law, a protocol, a regulatory authority or NHS England, but by bereaved and harmed families, having to speak up over and over again about the most horrific and traumatic experience of their lives just to be heard. So does the Prime Minister agree with me that the system is not only failing, but it is cruel? And if we are to restore public trust, then we must finally introduce Hillsborough Law in full, so that families can get the justice and accountability they need and deserve.
Can I thank her for raising this? Baroness Amos's findings show a deeply disturbing picture, deep fragmentation and an overly complex system. Women and families not being listened to, no proper accountability, and discrimination is driving inequalities in treatment and outcome. We will deliver the change that is needed. We will look at the urgent recommendations and deliver those of Baroness Amos as well as those of Donna Ockenden. And can I thank her for leading from the front as the first maternity advisor, working with families and the NHS to deliver safer, better care for every mother and baby. And can I say that I know her son Billy would be very proud of her.
Yeah. Sir Desmond Swing.
Mr. Speaker, through omission or insufficient advice, injured veterans may fail to place their compensation in a trust within the 1 year allowed by universal credit. Can discretion be had in compassionate cases?
Yeah. Prime Minister. Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman. I'm enjoying our weekly exchanges. Every veteran who served in our country, and I thank him for raising this because it is a really important point, should be looked after and better able to access any compensation they're entitled to. We have dedicated pathways for veterans in every job centre to provide support with benefit claims and complex cases. But I can assure him and reassure him that anyone coming forward will get tailored support and we'll seek to resolve any issues swiftly and fairly to see whether we can improve on that. If he's got any specific cases, or other members have, if he could pass, or others pass the details to us, we will look at them. I noticed that BBC reported his question last week, him saying it would almost certainly be his last to me as Prime Minister. A reminder, you shouldn't always believe everything you read in the news. I look forward to seeing him at the same place, same time next week.
Catherine West.
Mr. Speaker, could I thank the Prime Minister for his calm and authoritative leadership in international affairs, and could I also thank the UK missions abroad who have enormous respect for him, and could I also ask him to put on record his thanks to the security, diplomatic and international aid workforce who work day and night on behalf of the UK abroad. And closer to home, Mr. Speaker, could I also, as a fellow North Londoner, say, despite the heat waves, North London forever, regardless of the weather.
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank. She's someone who always speaks her mind, and I join her in thanking our people. I'm proud that during my tenure we've delivered 5 major trade deals. We've led the coalition of the willing to support Ukraine and strengthened the NATO alliance, built stronger partnerships with the EU and kept us out of the war in Iran. And can I thank her for her contribution that she made as Foreign Office Minister.
Joshua Reynolds.
Speaker. Yesterday, the Prime Minister visited Maidenhead to announce his new defence investment plan. However, as we now know, he's leading it to his successor to decide how to fund the majority of it. We cannot fund our armed forces without growth, and we cannot get growth in Britain without the red tape that British businesses are having be dismantled, as well as trading closer with our closest neighbours. So will the Prime Minister agree that a new growth and defence partnership with Europe is how we can properly fund our forces, and will he urge his successor to drop Labour's red lines to get it done?
Prime Minister.
Well, he obviously didn't pay so much attention as he should to what I was saying yesterday in terms of the plan, the capability, the record investment that we're putting in and how we're funding it. I do agree we need to work more closely with the EU on defence and security as well as trade and the economy. That's precisely what we agreed at the EU-UK summit last year, and we've been building on that. And I'm proud to say in the last 2 years the relationship between the UK and the EU has been transformed into a much better, trusted relationship. It is very important as Prime Minister that I leave the country in better state than I found it, and I do.
Sarah Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Carly Mellor, an NHS dentist in my constituency, spoke to me recently, and I quote, "Ministers pledged to fix the failed contract we worked to within this Parliament. The government has begun discussions on a new contract and promised a public consultation on it this summer. A typical dentist delivering NHS care does so at a loss. With every passing month, more practices are reconsidering their future in the NHS, while millions of patients continue to struggle to access care. Reforming the contract is the route to better treatment for my constituents. Please, can we start the consultation without delay?"
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for raising this? I'm pleased that we've delivered over 1.8 million additional courses of NHS treatment, because no one needing urgent care should be left in pain and waiting for help. Mr Speaker, we've already made early reforms, including embedding urgent care into the contract so people get fast access to NHS care, and delivering the first sustained expansion of dental school places in nearly 20 years to get extra dentists trained. We will consult on a reformed dental contract soon, and I'll make sure that ministers update my honourable friend.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In Ashfield, 4 workers, including 2 nurses, were kicked out of their HMO, and Serco put 4 illegal migrants in this HMO. One of these illegal migrants was a Pakistani national. He went on to rape a young girl, a vulnerable young girl, on a park in Ashfield. He's now doing 14 years in prison. This was a monster allowed into this country by this awful government. But if a Prime Minister is really serious about protecting young women and girls, does he agree with me and Reform UK that every single illegal migrant coming to this country should be detained, not allowed to claim asylum and then deported?
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm very proud of the fact that after net migration reached almost 1 million under the party opposite, we brought it down by 82%. On the asylum system, which he references, now asylum decisions are made at record levels, the backlog is down, removals are up 41%, and we're closing asylum hotels. They lost control of our borders. Now small boat crossings are coming down, and we deported 70,000 people with no right to be here. He likes to ask questions. He should be asking some questions of the leader of his party sitting next to him. He received £5 million in crypto from a crypto billionaire, and then privately lobbied the Bank of England on digital currencies. So did their leader carry out lobbying paid? Why did he keep his £5 million gift secret? And are they happy with their leader earning £20,000 an hour flogging gold bullion? They need to ask the questions across their benches, but they never do.
Lewis Atkinson.
Mr Speaker, too many people are waiting too long for NHS mental health care, with over 6,000 adults waiting up to 2 years. In Sunderland, grassroots organisations like the wonderful Betsy Jenny Cafe are providing support to our community, but they cannot substitute for timely NHS-funded care. So as the government consults on its new mental health strategy, will the Prime Minister agree with me that it must include clear waiting time standards?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank him, and we're determined to transform mental health so everyone gets the support they need. Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to say that we've recruited 8,700 extra mental health workers. We've opened the first of 6 24/7 neighbourhood mental health centres, and we're ensured that nearly 800,000 more children and young people have access to a mental health support team in their school or college. There is more to be done, but this is a real step forward.
Cole Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Last week in Northern Ireland, a former member of this House was convicted for the most horrific child sexual abuse against 2 girls. I want to commend the victims for their extraordinary bravery in coming forward. It was their courage secured a conviction, and I have no doubt that their resolve will help others find their voice. No matter an abuser's power or status, there can be no hiding place for someone who would take the safety or would steal the innocence of young children. Mr Speaker, thousands of vulnerable young women in Rotherham, Oldham and across the UK were subjected to organised child sexual abuse and exploitation. In many cases, it was Pakistani heritage grooming gangs responsible, while institutions looked the other way. Before leaving office, the Prime Minister has the ability and opportunity to leave a legacy. Will he ensure that the promised statutory rape gang inquiry is delivered so the truth can finally be told, and that those responsible are held to account, and that no child's safety is ever sacrificed ever again for racial sensitivities?
Minister.
Can I thank her for raising the case in Belfast that concluded last week, and, like her, salute the courage of the victims to come forward. It must have taken extraordinary courage. It does in every single one of these cases, but particularly when you've got powerful people and institutions, it takes even more courage to do so. And so we salute them for their own acts, but also because it will, I hope, have helped others to see that if you do come forward, you will be believed and justice can be done, notwithstanding the difficulties. On grooming, we have set up the inquiry, and it's very important it goes wherever the evidence should take it, and that's an absolute guiding principle of the inquiry.
Final question, Alex Davis-Jones.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we are joined in the gallery by Lisa Phillips, a British survivor of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific and despicable trafficking and abuse. Lisa's bravery is to be commended, and her determination for justice and accountability on behalf of all UK survivors should be put on record. And I want to place on record my thanks to you, Mr. Speaker, for meeting with Lisa this week. Your solidarity means more than you will ever know. So in that vein, will the Prime Minister please commit to meet with Lisa and the other British survivors and commit to what is needed, a full public inquiry, so we can have the truth, justice and accountability.
Prime Minister. Can I thank you for raising this really important issue and drawing it to the House's attention? And I'm glad that we're joined in the gallery today. It is really important that we keep our focus on violence against women and girls, and I'll make sure the meetings she requested are set up.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front bench change over. We now come to the urgent question. Matt Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs if she will make a statement on Israel's planned illegal expansion in the E1 zone in the occupied Palestinian territories.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the British government firmly opposes the E1 settlement plan. It would divide the West Bank in two and mark a serious breach of international law. The Prime Minister led 11 other world leaders in a joint statement last month. That condemned the E1 plans, urged the Israeli government to end settlement expansion, and warned businesses of legal and reputational consequences of participating in construction in E1 and other settlements. We are clear. Businesses should not bid for construction tenders in E1 or other settlements. We are deeply alarmed by the situation in the West Bank. Illegal settlements continue to expand, settler violence remains at record levels, and the Israeli government has further entrenched its control. Last month, the Foreign Secretary announced further sanctions in response to that violence in the West Bank. That is the fourth package under this government. We welcome the condemnation of settler violence at the highest levels of Israeli society. Now, Israel must conduct swift and transparent investigations into these attacks and ensure accountability. The Foreign Secretary also announced that we'd updated our business guidance to clearly advise British businesses and citizens not to engage in economic and financial activity in settlements. We have been concerned by efforts to advertise settlement property in the UK and by reports of charitable links between the UK and settlements. I have written to the Advertising Standards Authority and spoken to the Charity Commission on these issues. But I want to reassure the House, Mr. Speaker, that whilst these trends in the West Bank continue to worsen, we will continue to take steps to ensure no one can profit from the sale of land that has been taken unlawfully, that violent settlers are held to account, that the British government stands up for the rule of law, the right of Palestinians to self-determination, and for the prospects for peace and security through a two-state solution. We are in discussion with partners, Mr. Speaker, including discussions with those few countries who have explored how bans to settlement trade might work. We are looking at further concrete steps to counter settlement expansion and to promote peace and security. It is only through a negotiated two-state solution, not unilateral action, that a viable path to long-term peace can be achieved. that must be a path that guarantees security to both Israelis and Palestinians alike.
Matt Weston.
Mr. Speaker, just yesterday, the Israeli Land Authority published new dates for the tenders for the construction of the proposed E1 settlement zone in the West Bank. The bidding period for the tender ends in October. And once the contracts have been awarded, it will become impossible to stop E1. So, Mr. Speaker, why is E1 so critical? Because the proposed settlement would absolutely and permanently destroy any prospect of a true two-state solution. It is a large area of land which would split the West Bank from north to south, severing connections between Palestinian communities and East Jerusalem, while forcibly transferring 7,000 Palestinians, itself a war crime under the Rome Statute. A few of us visited just 4 weeks ago. We saw firsthand the accelerated pace at which Israel is expanding its illegal settlements. A massive 2,000 housing units have been approved just since that visit, according to the United Kingdom Chargé d'Affaires to the UN on Monday. It is clear Israel is systematically and deliberately doing all it can to make a two-state solution impossible, and its impunity must end. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister today make categorically clear that any businesses, organisations, including financial and insurance institutions or individuals that participate in or facilitate the construction of the E1 zone will be sanctioned and not allowed to trade and do business here with the UK, and legislate accordingly as a matter of urgency? Secondly, I, alongside 139 parliamentary colleagues, have urged the Minister to end all trading with illegal Israeli settlements. Can I once again urge the Minister to implement a full ban and suspend the FTA with Israel based on continued violations of human rights and the prospect of this development? Mr. Speaker, Palestine is fracturing before our eyes. Our intelligence can see this. The international community must stop E1.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his attention to these issues, and I know he has travelled recently to the occupied Palestinian territory to see it with his own eyes. As you've heard me say many times, Mr. Speaker, I won't comment on sanctions from this dispatch box, but I have been clear, myself and indeed the Prime Minister has led 11 other world leaders to be absolutely crystal clear on the implications and consequences if the E1 settlement continues. He was clear, as were his colleagues in that statement, that there would be implications for the businesses themselves. So far, Mr. Speaker, we have heard word from the Israeli government about their plans. Clearly, businesses in the region will want to consider carefully the warning from the statement last week, and indeed the clear commitment from the dispatch box here in the UK that we will take further measures if the continued action to increase violent settlements continues in the West Bank.
Wendy Morton, Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will directly address the matter of settlements in just a moment, but I want to make a broader point first. That is that diplomacy is about rolling up your sleeves. It's putting in the hard yards, not just issuing condemnatory statements. So I do believe if the Minister wants to have a real sway with the government of Israel, then there has to be a meaningful dialogue. But at the moment, there is no dialogue between this Labour government and Israel, despite the obvious importance of the bilateral relationship to Britain across so many domains. That is because of the decisions Labour has made, from suspending export licences when Israel was burying murdered hostages, to cancelling trade talks, to recognising a Palestinian state while hostages were still being held in terrorist captivity. And by deliberately keeping relations with Israel in a deep freeze, Labour is cutting off its ability to influence situations on the ground. Nonetheless, let me say that settlement expansion in the West Bank is not helpful for achieving the long-term peace we all want to see. And that has long been my party's position. We would also like to see Israel use its legal system to really bear down on settler violence. We on these benches do support a two-state solution. one that guarantees security and stability for both the Israeli and the Palestinian people. So today I'd like to ask the Minister if he can tell us whether he has spoken to his Israeli counterparts directly on the E1 situation. Is the government doing anything at all to help the Abraham Accords expand or to unblock issues holding up a broader regional peace? And finally, can he update us on his assessment of the Palestinian Authority's plan to hold elections in November and whether he is concerned by the PA's lack of progress on the total overhaul of curriculums and welfare policy that is so clearly needed? Thank you.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if I can deal with the latter points raised by the spokesman for the opposition first. Yes, we continue to talk to the Palestinian Authority, including on the reform agenda and the need for elections. It is an undeniable fact, Mr. Speaker, that I am the Middle East Minister who recognised a Palestinian state during my time, sanctioned Israeli ministers who now regularly take to the airwaves to issue in the most bloodthirsty terms encouragement for some of the activity which I am being asked about at the moment. It is, I'm afraid, an inevitable consequence of the actions that have been announced from this dispatch box that the warmth of my relationship with my counterparts in Israel has indeed suffered. But this government will not hesitate to stand up for the principles which I think are supported right across this House. She could not have failed to hear the groans from behind her on her own benches. I know in recognising a Palestinian state, I was of course supported by those behind me, but I also think by those behind her as well.
Dame Emily Thornbury, Chair of the Select Committee.
Mr. Speaker, I read an interesting letter recently from the Dutch Foreign Minister to the Speaker of their Parliament, and in it he said that his government had carefully weighed the efficiency, the effectiveness, the proportionality, the enforceability and the administrative burden of introducing a full trade ban on Israeli goods coming from the illegal settlements in the West Bank. He said, having looked at all of that, the Netherlands had decided that the right thing to do, the legal thing to do, was to push for a full trade ban with the settlements. And so has Ireland, and Norway, and Spain, and Slovenia, and Belgium, and Luxembourg, and Portugal, and Finland, and Poland. My question is, when are we going to join them?
Mr. Speaker, I'd just like, disagreeing with the Right Honourable Lady, Slovenia have introduced and then repealed the measures that they've taken. I think in our discussions with our counterparts, there are a number of technical difficulties that people are encountering, particularly those in the European Union. But I would just be clear to the House, as I have in my statement, I am confirming today that we are in discussions about such measures.
Harding, the Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, here we are again. The Liberal Democrats have welcomed the government's historic decision to recognise the State of Palestine, which we on these benches have long called for. We have welcomed more recent statements of intent, including just 10 days ago in this House. But these statements are utterly hollow without action, especially when we know that the Israeli Security Cabinet's stated aim is to make a future Palestinian state unviable. We have asked these questions before, but we will ask them again. When will the government put forward a clear plan to halt and reverse this illegal expansion into East Jerusalem and the West Bank? When will they respond to the 2024 ruling of the ICJ? When will the government introduce a package of sanctions, including fines, for any UK firms which bid for contracts for settlement construction in E1 or anywhere in the occupied Palestinian territories? Will the government expand this to cover any UK financial institution that finances or facilitates UK companies' involvement in construction or other services? And when will the UK move fast to ban all UK trade in goods and services with illegal Israeli settlements?
Mr. Speaker, I think I've addressed most of those questions already. I've just confirmed, again, as I did in the statement, that we are in discussions about the further measures in relation to West Bank goods. We set out business guidance. It was the fourth round of sanctions that the Foreign Secretary announced in June. We have moved, if she makes reference to speed, we have moved, I think she will acknowledge, rather more quickly than some of our colleagues. I'm pleased to see many of our partners and allies taking some of the measures that I announced in this House in 2025, including sanctions on the ministers that I mentioned. We are moving with alacrity in response to what we see. The question at issue in the urgent question is about the E1 settlement expansion. It is rumoured that there is now a timetable for those tenders. I have been clear, as I can be, from this dispatch box, that we are watching very carefully who bids for those tenders. We have been clear repeatedly to the Israeli government about our view on the E1 expansion. I have repeated it today. The question that is before us is whether or not, in the run-up to the Israeli election, commercial entities choose to bid for those tenders, and that is what we will be watching carefully and taking action in response to.
Sarah Champion, Chair of the International Law.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's right that the government acknowledges that Israel's presence in Palestine is illegal under international laws, but for 2 years it hasn't responded to the ICJ's advisory ruling that Israel's actions towards Palestinians in the West Bank may constitute forcible transfer. The Israeli government expressly backs the E1 scheme, which will necessarily displace tens of thousands of Palestinians and dissect the West Bank. Netanyahu says of the plan, "We are going to fulfil our promise that there will be no Palestinian state. This place belongs to us." Mr. Speaker, the UK's current situation is unsustainable. So will the Minister acknowledge the Israeli government's role in the forcible transfer of Palestinians in the West Bank and act accordingly with full range of diplomatic interventions?
Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't want there to be any ambiguity about the force of our views about what is going on in the West Bank. That is why we have done 4 rounds of sanctions. That is why I am setting out clearly today what the likely consequences are should that action continue. The advisory opinion of the ICJ is important, but it is a non-binding opinion of an international court. It does not require, we do not require to take a judgment on that opinion in order to take action. And indeed, we have taken very considerable action over the last 2 years in the way that I have set out.
Mark Mitchell.
Madam Speaker, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I believe personally that the life of a Palestinian child is as precious as an Israeli child, and that is my foundation to all of this. May I congratulate the Minister for the Middle East and indeed the Prime Minister in his absence for having the courage and the leadership to recognise the Palestinian state what they did. I supported that and I continue to support that, and I think indeed, Madam Speaker, this urgent question today justifies that position of last September, because at that point we were all concerned that the viability of a Palestinian state was reducing as the weeks go by, and we've seen that the policy, the extant policy of the current Israeli government is continue those illegal occupations and expansion. So could the Minister tell the House what is the latest on his sort of discussions in Washington about the Board of Peace and reconstructing Gaza and ensuring that there is a viable Palestinian state? And then secondly and finally, his view on whether the current Israeli government position is likely to go beyond this autumn.
I thank the honourable gentleman for the question. We clearly speak now, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the run-up to an Israeli election campaign. They are likely to have their elections in October. There is a particularly, as indeed in any democratic country, a particularly heavy amount of policy positioning by various parties. We are calling on all Israeli politicians to abide by the basic principles, both of international law, but also the very, very important 20-point plan to which he alludes. I have spoken to officials, both of the Board of Peace, of NCAG, as well as the Palestinian Authority. It is vital that we make progress on that plan. There are still insufficient quantities of aid getting into Gaza. There are still unresolved questions about the disarmament of Hamas, and we are playing our full role behind the scenes to try and make progress on those questions. But this situation is becoming very urgent indeed, both in the West Bank and indeed in Gaza.
Shnor Ali.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The E1 settlement expansion programme is clearly designed to undermine a Palestinian state, despite this government, for the first time in our history, recognising Palestinian statehood. So can my honourable friend highlight the time frame within which he's working in relation to the points he made in the discussions to do with the FTA, as well as other actions, including sanctions. I recognise he can't talk about the specifics, but can he set out the timeline to assure us that that works in concert with the expansion plan, so that we are not acting after the event, which is often has been the case in relation to past actions by the Israeli government?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm hesitant to end up setting out what the Israeli government's plans may or may not be from the dispatch box. They will do so themselves through their own channels. As I understand it, there is an intent to have a tender which would end in October, as one of the colleagues opposite, one of the members opposite alluded to. We will work on that timetable as well. That is clearly running right up to the Israeli election. It is deeply inappropriate to proceed with a programme so close to an Israeli election with such grave consequences internationally.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the member for Warwick and Leamington for raising this urgent question. I was on the trip to Israel the other week with him, and I think we saw all too clearly and depressingly the